call to order. Yeah, is that better? All right, going down the list, do we have Fred?
Here.
Myself, Dr. Lena Powell-Wilson.
Here.
Patrick is not coming. Ryan.
Here.
And Catherine.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to our agenda for the evening?
Just that Patrick should be excused. He emailed me last night, so I didn't have time to put it.
Oh, that's right. We have to vote to approve.
Yep.
We have a
Move
motion.
that Patrick's absence is excused.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have approval of minutes from last meeting. Did anyone see anything?
And the adoption of the agenda. Sorry.
Oh, we have to adopt it first.
Yep.
Getting ahead of ourselves. That was the only modification, though?
Yep.
All right, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening?
Motion to adopt the new agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Now for the minutes from last meeting. Starting off, I will note in F2 we have O'Connor spelled with an E twice. Should probably get that right since it's our source of funding. Does anyone else notice anything?
I didn't.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve as amended.
I second it.
That brings us to public comments. Were there any turned in previously?
No
No.
previous. 1 second, Pam. I'm not sure if the mic is on. That's not the mic. Will you tap it real quick? I'm sorry. Nope, it's not. Try it again. Or give it another tap. Very mysterious.
Testing?
Outside.
Yeah, that worked. I'm Pam O'Connor, and I reside in the city of Kalamazoo. I have a couple of questions to ask. I recognize that you may not be able to drop everything and discuss them all tonight, but I'd like to just put them out there. I'd like to request that I be formally added to 2 sets of information that you receive from the coordinator monthly. That is the call for reports, which happens the week before the meeting, and then the meeting packet. As a subcommittee member, I regularly provide reports to you on the things that the O'Connor Fund is doing and whatever else I happen to be involved in. And it would be helpful if the coordinator could add me to the contacts list or copy me in the group list that I assume he has for you all. Also, I think it would be helpful if we could see a couple of matters on your agenda monthly until they are resolved. The one that came to mind was the City Hall Local Historic District Study Report. If you could get an update on a monthly basis as to what's going on there, if the public could have an update. As the person who prepared that study report, I'd like to know. Other topics as needed, as you're working on them, would be helpful too. A question. I think you've had an application from a candidate for your 7th seat for a number of months, and I'm curious to know why you haven't interviewed that person yet. And finally, no, not quite finally, Now that you have a policy as of last month's meeting to roll funds over to the O'Connor Fund, when your balance in-house exceeds $5,000, I'd like to know if that's happened yet. This would be the third quarter, so it's an appropriate time to do it. And then lastly, at your meeting next week, orientation and training, I do hope, and I plan to attend, that you will also be addressing an actual plan for your work for the rest of this year and next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And I will go down the concerns that you raised. First, for the call for materials, my apologies that you weren't included last month. I do try to make sure that everyone gets included, and it must have just been an omission on my part to not send it out to you. I do just want to remind everyone too, if I ever do forget, that the call does go out the week before every time for materials to be included on the packet, and that the packet materials are on the City of Kalamazoo Civic Clerk portal. I think that's one of the perks of the new system that we have, is that I do not keep it on my private computer. It is always available online after I make the packet. So it is publicly available, more so than I think it was before in the past, but I will make sure to include you, Pam. The local historic district, I will make sure that on next month's agenda, I do put that on there. Admittedly, I did not look at it in between the last two meetings, but I'll make sure that I do include it and I take a look at it before next meeting. The applicant, I was hoping to get more people to apply for it, and I've been putting out calls for that every month in the intervening times to the commissioners here to see if anyone else was interested, so I will move forward with the interview of the applicant. I thought that we might be able to get more than one, but we can move forward with that. And for the training, the funds, I haven't sent it over to Marcy yet, but I will get it sent over to her by the end of this week, the motion. I talked to her about it before the meeting happened, so she knew that it was coming up, but I'll send over the formal motion to her by the end of the week. And regarding the training, we will discuss the plan as well. The things that I included in the my coordinator's report were not exhaustive by any means. They were just some of the things that I had written down in my notes. And some of the things that I got in emails from the commissioners, but we can also take time to look at the plan that we adopted last year as well. Yep.
I have one comment or question. I'm wondering, I know that you've made some efforts to slim down the agenda, which I think does help readability of it, certainly, but I do wonder if there would be benefit to bringing back just our key kind of work plan agenda item, or a work plan goals, that is, so that like at least once a month, even if there's not a report, which I know of course you put the call out for reports, but sometimes it's nice just to check back in on it, and it keeps it top of mind, not to try to clutter up the whole agenda. But I do feel like it might, because those have been expressed goals that we've all agreed upon, that just touching base on them, even to say there's no report this month, could help keep it top of mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who else thinks about that? Because I think otherwise months go by and we might not talk about it, which then no work is getting done, of course. So.
Yeah, and I can include it. I would also ask the subcommittee chairs then to give me a small nudge if possible, so then, and it would just become a report then. But maybe we could do it bi-monthly, or just for those check-ins. It would be like a check-in report, I guess, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that it could just become a standard without a nudge from the subcommittee leaders. That just it's a standard thing. Maybe you split it up. If it's bi-monthly, then you know, 2 of the subcommittees go this month and 2 next month, just to kind of keep it rolling. Mm-hmm. It would just be nice if it was just a standing mention at the meetings.
Okay. My only concern would be that if nothing's happening, would anything be said?
And I don't know that
okay.
is, I think that's okay.
Okay. I
think if nothing needs to be said, then nothing's going to be said anyway if it's not on the, whoops, there you go.
Yeah.
So
okay.
anyway, that's just my opinions. I don't know if anyone else has any other differing opinions. Nope. Okay.
And I can do that for you.
Okay. I think that would be helpful for me, at least, just to kind of keep us feeling like there's progress and movement. Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to E, reports, and then we have on the schedule J, our neighborhood activator. Would you like to take the podium?
Hello, Commissioners. Speaking of progress updates, I'm here to share with you about a project that I spoke with you before, Ransom Street construction. So we're looking at reconstructing the street and right-of-way between Wallbridge and Westnedge Avenue. So construction is slated to start in a couple weeks, July 24th. Due to the delay of construction for this phase in 2023, construction will be focused on from Wallbridge to Pitcher Street, so 2 blocks. And then starting in 2024, they will complete the rest of the project on time from Pitcher to Westnedge. So I brought this to you last time because part of the project is looking at designing and installing historical markers alongside Ransom Street on the south side, roughly 36 pillars that would help commemorate the legacy of Black businesses on the north side. Over the last few months, I've worked with NACD, the Northside Association for Community Development, and NCBDA, which is the Northside Cultural Business District Authority, the TIF district there that Ransom Street is encompassed. And through those conversations, we wanted to explore partnerships with local institutions to help us design these historical markers. Through that, worked with Western School of Engineering. They have the Bronco Construction Research Center, and they're interested in having a group of students looking at the design of these pillars that would incorporate the historic brick pavers that are currently in Ransom Street on the east side, which we would be removing as part of this project. And we'd like to reuse those as key historical assets in the design of these pillars. So they were interested. We got a sample of the brick pavers over to them so they can take a look and see if it's possible to incorporate them and how to best incorporate them into the design. Over the next year or so, we would want to work with those students to have that design in partnership with city staff, our public work engineers, and then have a design so that we can help understand what the layout of the content would look like, how much space we would have, the materials we would use to have the content displayed on, exactly the number of historical markers based on the design and the specific locations of them along Ransom Street, and looking at as early as 2025 to install them once the complete reconstruction is done for Ransom Street. Right now, the idea is to incorporate lighting in these historical pillars, and so we're having electrical conduit laid out along the entire corridor underground. And so hopefully we can decide the locations of these pillars now so that we can, once the conduit is laid, we can have specific outlets installed along the corridor, and those would dictate where those pillars are going to go. So when we do install them in 2025, we have the infrastructure already in place to get that connected, and looking at that design wrapping up within the next year, so then we can secure funding to actually get those built. During that entire process, we would like to work with partners on identifying the content that we would like displayed on these pillars and working on drafting that content. So coming to you again to just share an update, and we would love to partner with the Historic Preservation Commission in any way that you would like to play a role in this. Whether it's helping get the word out about getting submissions from the community members on what kind of content they would like to see displayed, submitting stories that you think make sense to be on these pillars, and or supporting the research and drafting of the content. So any questions?
Just a few, that sounds very interesting and exciting. Who are the other partners being, that are involved currently? Both, you mentioned with the construction and the design of the pillars, but as for identifying the subject and the content and the writing, is there any community partners involved so far?
NACD and CBDA has been partners throughout the entire process on every aspect of this project. So they will continue to be involved with reaching out to specific residents, other stakeholders, to facilitate this process and gathering content.
And is there, the kind of drafting of the messaging that's going to be on these pillars, and it sounds like that there are 36 of them, you're going to want to have like a similar tone and ways of writing these things. Is there a consultant going to be hired, or is this going to be mostly community driven, community written, or has that been discussed yet?
I've met with Lynn Hoden with Zhang Archive Center. She's interested in being involved with the project once we kind of get to the point in which it makes sense for her to be there and looking at content. And we have worked with specifically the Senior Academical Center, which is on the north side, that wants to be involved in organizing interviews with seniors there and being involved in however they can. So I think through that, partnerships with NACD and NCBDA, we'll find out what the best balance is between having submissions written by residents, getting reviewed / edited by either a consultant or an institutional partner like Western with Lynn Hoden or someone else, maybe the Public History Department or another local historian.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then lastly, the pillar placement, is that going to be key to historical sites, or is that more related to kind of the output issues that you mentioned with, making these accessible or making these functional pillars for electricity and whatnot? So, I'm just wondering, like, how is the placement being decided? Is it history driven or more functional?
Certainly more functional, because we have
Okay.
to make sure we balance between street trees and street lights and parking, hydrants. There's a lot of different things in the right of way that we want to make sure, it's feasible to install, and also keep some kind of consistency between the frequency of these pillars.
Sure.
That's why we're looking at around 36. That is already probably a lot. When you think about it, across 9 blocks, that's roughly 4 per block. So we could even be looking at less than that, 18 to 27, just depending on, again, all those factors. There are no outlet issues with the electrical. Again, the electrical conduit is running along the entire corridor. It's just us, I don't want to get too technical, but basically, you put the conduit in, you have to have an actual outlet coming from points of the conduit to get connected into the pillar. So it's either we do it now while we're already constructing, or in 2025, we dig up the sidewalk and put that T in there. And we could do that too. It's whatever,
Okay.
really.
That makes sense. Sorry, I didn't totally understand. Thank you.
So now, in terms of being historically driven, for example, Second Baptist is right off of Ransom Street. If we're doing a historical marker that commemorates, the architect of Second Baptist, or, what have you, ideally, we would put that specific content right there near Second Baptist. But it is not, the content's not necessarily going to be limited to things that took place or businesses right on the Ransom corridor. We're going to do our best to be able to identify those stories along Ransom. And if we don't have enough content to include that's specific to Ransom, we want to branch out within the larger North Side neighborhood. But we do want to keep it with the scope within the North Side neighborhood.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
What size are the pillars?
We won't know until they're designed.
So what would you guess, like size of your podium right there, or?
I would probably say no, smaller than that. I mean, I would probably say in terms of perimeter, max 4x4. We're looking at it would, potentially fit within a sidewalk slab. Okay,
And-
so if we're thinking a sidewalk slab is like 6 by 6, that gives us a perimeter about 1 to 2 feet around there. It needs to be 2 feet back from the curb, and we still need to have at least 6 feet of walking clearance from the face of a building to that pillar within the sidewalk. In terms of height, I don't know if visibility for that is much of an issue until we get closer, probably within 25 feet of an intersection. It shouldn't be more than 3 feet tall. So we would either, if pillars are more than 3 feet tall, we'd probably make sure that they're located outside of that 20 feet zone of an intersection. If it's 3 feet or less, we would just keep it at 3 feet or less if that's where we would like to place them. Ultimately, it would come down to what the students, in partnership with public work engineers, come up with different options and what the community would like, and how we incorporate those bricks. I don't think the entire pillar will be made up of those bricks. They'll probably be used as accents. And so depending on that, what is the other material we'll use? And I think that will help drive what the exact size will be.
The electric, is it for lighting, or is it gonna be a digital?
Community stakeholders have voiced an interest in having a lighting component to add to lighting throughout the corridor to continue to make it even more safe and welcoming. They also would like to potentially see some interactive components with the content, but the number one priority is having additional lighting to add to the safety and walkability of the corridor.
That might factor back into content. If we can't fit everything that we determine we want to, then maybe that interactive one allows that expansion of material.
And there's different ways to be interactive, right? Doesn't necessarily need to be like a touch screen,
Yeah, it
right?
could be a flip panel or something.
Yeah, or it could be a QR code. So really, you can have a static sign and then a QR code, and that brings it to a more interactive space online. We can do a lot of different things. So I think that's still to be explored until we finalize what the design looks like.
So I had a couple questions, I'm sorry. First, I guess I want to piggyback onto Catherine's question. What exactly did you need from HPC? Because I'm hearing more so maybe the financial aspect of it and paying for different things, for a portion of the project, in which case I support that, but I think that our involvement needs to focus on, the historic foundations and buildings in the area, in which case you, out of the 36, that may be only do 10, okay? So we would be responsible for 10. I'm just spitballing, guys. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but I'm spitballing. All right, so so I think that's kind of our first idea. And then I think as the Historic Preservation Commission, we should, and maybe I'm going back to the committee, we should propose the buildings that we want to be focused on and give that to the students and see what they come up with, design for, as opposed to them just coming up with a building that may or may not be historic or meaningful to the north side. So I do agree that's probably our realm of what we can do to assist. But I guess I'm a little confused on your ask of you're asking us where do you want us to put the lights and things like that. I would have expected a map so I can understand how it's going to go. So if we could get that, that'll help us to help you. So I'm sorry, I'm a visual person. I gotta see it. The other final thing is, were there any considerations? Because if I recall, Ransom, for the most part, it's not well lit, okay? It's not dark, but it's not well lit. When you're adding this additional lighting, have there been conversations with the neighbors? Because now they have all this light shining in their homes and what have you. Has all that been considered and approached to them to let them know that, hey, you're okay, you know, with this additional lighting?
Yeah, so first, let me apologize if I was not clear. Not asking for locations from you guys on the lighting. We'll be working with the engineers and in partnership with the students around the design on where we can locate the ask is just simply to have a discussion among you to figure out what kind of role you would like to take. From my impression, you guys are interested in exploring doing a larger citywide local historical marker program. This could be part of that. That could be the catalyst to get that off the ground. It could be completely separate. So I'm just sharing with you that this is an opportunity that the city's working on. And if you want to be involved in any level, let Louise know that I'm here and happy to come back or have a separate meeting or what have you. And so if that involves you guys volunteering with doing some research or connecting directly with the residents when we have community engagement, I mean, just let me know what your level of willingness to be involved is, and I have a whole range of things that we could explore. Last time I gave some additional background to the project. So myself and we had subcontractor support the public engagement. We met with 90% of the stakeholders along that Ransom Street corridor. We had several 1 to 2 hours of one-on-one interviews for each of those stakeholders, asking them what they want to see out of this project, what would be their needs for detours and access to utilities during the construction, and what they want to see out of the project after construction. Our zoning ordinance is very explicit on the requirement around adhering to dark sky principles, which means we aren't allowed to put in lighting that adds to the lighting pollution of the sky. And there's only 2 residents that live on the Ransom Street corridor. So we have discussed with them what the overall plan is. Outside of that, everyone is commercial. And so no one has expressed an issue with anything when it comes to lighting intensity. Their complaint has been the existing lighting is not lit enough, and we need to see further investment like we see in the rest of the city. So we've actually asked for higher intensity lighting throughout the corridor with the street lights above the average lighting levels that we see in the city. All stakeholders, as a consensus, said that that's what they want to see. They're excited about that. They thought we weren't doing enough, and so this is why they want to see some lighting components included in the historical pillars to help add to that. Ultimately, this street is a main street, categorized as a main street. Again, largely commercial, right outside of downtown. We'll only see further redevelopment commercial-wise across the corridor as we make these investments. So I think as much as we can, we need to ensure that people feel safe when walking Ransom and feel welcomed in that space. So I have not heard anything complaint-wise about where we're going with the lighting. Trying to make sure I'm answering all your questions, Commissioner Powell-Wilson. Let's see. What was another one?
Just wanted to get a clear understanding of what your ask is, and you've clarified that. Okay. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, thank you. That was really helpful. And I think looking at, the work plan goal for the historical marker program, I think Fred and Lene, I think you're the 2 subcommittee chairs for that. Is that right? Yeah, I think that this could be a really nice way, as Jay said, to fulfill the goals that we have, as well as kind of merge in with an existing community priority. So I wonder if maybe it could be good for the two of you to think about how you see HPC, working with the city or with the current stakeholders, and how we can be of service in that, because it seems like a great way to kind of head this, or to start this goal off, because I'm not sure what's been done so far on it. I know that there's been a lot of discussions, which has been good, but we wanted to be clear we didn't want to go in and commandeer anything, right? We've talked a lot about that, and this seems like a way to work with the existing priorities. So maybe you could, yeah.
And one thing is, we can certainly provide a map. Once we decide on the locations, we can definitely provide a map to you all to review and understand where we're looking to locate these, and if that helps you figure out how that might drive content. And the other thing is, the reason why I want to get this to before you now is we're in, I think, a critical time, because we haven't launched this design with the students. We're still kind of finalizing what that looks like. And if you see your role in providing input into that design criteria, this is the time. So if there's, from your background experience or your goals as HPC, if there's a certain way that you want to see the historical pavers reused in the design, we should let them know. If there's specific concerns around lighting, we should let them know. If there's specific nods to certain themes or content that you want to help drive the actual look and feel of the historical pillar, that could tie into the larger historical marker program, or just different aspects of historic preservation for the city of Kalamazoo, I think that would be great to help guide the designers on what we're looking to try to achieve with this project. And so if you see the role of HPC in providing that input, I'm right here, let Louise know, and I can put that together along with other requirements, engineering-wise, that we need to share with that group. If not, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this opportunity, and however you want to be involved, let me know. And whatever resources you need, maps, other visuals, other information, I'm happy to compile that, share that with Louise, and get that over to you.
When we first heard this several months ago, we were excited about the potential of what our committee could do, or the board could do in that, so, yes.
So I did have that second update about Parkview Hills, or is I'm out of time?
Would like to speak then
Okay.
quickly about ransom. And this speaks to what Catherine was saying before, and I apologize for not having the work plan in, but I think that there's 2 points that we could look at for this. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion goal. Outcomes for the project included nominations at federal or local levels, or a local marker program. Outside of that, even, I think that certain communities within the city of Kalamazoo have long not been looked at or considered for historic preservation, and I also think that as we continue to move forward with historic preservation, the scope of what we're considering is going to be ever widening. Perhaps not looking at things that are tangible because they're not there anymore might need to be considered, because if we don't do that, then we won't be able to be inclusive and consider all the people that make up this community. Having an opportunity to tap into the program that Jay is sharing then, I think, is a wonderful opportunity to highlight the north side, which, again, historically has not really been included in preservation efforts, and then also to be able to uplift the story of Black citizens of the city of Kalamazoo, which I think is something that also has not historically been done in the city. So even besides our work plan, I think it's really an honor to be able to be sitting at this intersection of the work program on the road, no pun intended, but being able to contribute to this in any way that you all feel that you can offer up your help, and then any way that would especially be helpful to Jay and the program overall. So anything that you can contribute, I think, would be great, and very excited to see this move forward. Our bylaws state that one of our missions is to, kind of preserve the resources of the city of Kalamazoo. And again, while we might not be doing that in the traditionally accepted way of looking at resources as buildings, we would be preserving those pavers from the street, which I think are another important aspect, and then preserving that the history as a resource of the city, and being able to make sure that future generations can look at that and understand that every single neighborhood in the city is important, and every single neighborhood in the city has unique things that make it important historically and contemporarily. So I think that this is a great program, and I'm looking forward to it.
And last thing, just to share about stakeholder engagement specifically to this project, is I want this to be very wide-reaching. I talk regularly with Pamela Rowland, who's the founder of Kalamazoo Junior Girls on the North Side. Just off one phone call, I didn't even ask about it. She just started rattling off like several different names, right, that we could even feature on these pillars. I'm like, whoa, you're going too fast. Let me write these down. Like wealth of knowledge. And working with the Senior Academical Center, Louise came with me to that day, and they just kept going on with stories and stories and stories. We, just shared the different streets we're looking at, and they started naming different businesses and different things that they remember from the past. Of course, Maddie Jordan Woods, the chair of NCBDA and also the director of NACD, this is her brainchild. I mean, through the work of the NCBDA, one of their primary activities is to look at how they can do these like cultural projects that help preserve the cultural identity of the North Side. And she wanted to see this, live walking museum where people can go, along the Ransom Street, bring KPS for field trips, tourists, just residents on the North Side, as they're walking along this new transformed corridor, learn about their neighborhood, or at least have an opportunity to reflect and recognize the contributions of the people there that have been there for generations. So we want to make sure that everyone on the North Side is involved, and there are a lot of great names and events that I think have really been recognized a lot, and we want to not include them, but I think one of the goals with this project is to lift up names that maybe have not been recognized yet. So, for example, Anna Wynn got a whole hall right down the street. Maybe there's content dedicated to her on one of the pillars that are off of Ransom and Rose as a direct connection to Anna Wynn Hall right down the street. But we want to be able to locate and identify key people that meant a lot to the people on the North Side that may have been erased or not understood as meaningful until now as part of the story of Kalamazoo. So I think that's why it's super important that we are invested in creating a space where residents feel comfortable being in and sharing their stories. And so this is going to be definitely community driven, but I think HBC or other institutions can play a role in supporting the research around verifying certain facts and just supporting some consistency in the writing of the content across all of the pillars. And so I think that is the value add that comes from working with institutional partners on this project alongside community members that are driving this. Okay, Parkview Hills, and then I'll wrap it up and thank you for my time. Parkview Hills, I came to you about this project as part of their neighborhood plan. They want to promote history of Parkview Hills. They also want to improve their trails. So we looked at, what if we took the Willow Lake Circle Trail, that's one of their shortest trails, I think less than 2 miles, right around Willow Circle Lake next to their clubhouse, and put trail signs along the trail that talk about the evolution of the Parkview Hills area. So our community planner, Nolan, has been leading this project to get that implemented in partnership with Louise, Lynn Hoden from the Zhang Archive Center, as well as Bill, who is a resident of Parkview Hills and serves on the Neighborhood Association for Parkview Hills. And they have been meeting for the last 2, maybe 3 months now on this project. 2 months. They've been going to the archives, pulling up different stories. We've identified some themes we want incorporated. So we want to make sure that we refer to indigenous presence here in the area. We want to talk about those that help lead the way of the creation of this plan unit development. And we also want to then bring it up to the future and talk about Imagine Kalamazoo and the work that Parkview Hills has done as a neighborhood to develop their neighborhood plan and how that helps support these type of preservation projects. And so just an update there. We're working on that. Right now, I think we're actually trying to finalize the construction of these signs. We'd like to replicate existing signage that's within the Parkview Hills neighborhood that's currently used to provide educational information about the geography and geology of the area, mostly along the trails. And the team is going to finalize that content, and then we're looking at about 4 to 5 signs along that trail. And the goal is to get these implemented by August 19th, which is coming up fast because that's a big community event that they're having this year. But we will have those in the ground no later than October 1st of this year. Louise, is there anything else that you think I should share about that? I'm not really looking for anything for this from the HBC. I just had shared this prior. This is another example of doing historical informational signage. I don't necessarily know if this falls within the same scope of the local historical marker program, like the Ransom Street project necessarily. But, it's a preservation project we're doing, so. Any questions about that?
I'm just glad you're sharing what's going on, even if we're not involved in it, but we need to be aware if we're going to be taking on similar projects, so.
I think even just for future discussion and thinking, potentially it would be nice to maybe have a direction to city staff on, where we see our position with working with tribes in the area, and how we collaborate on, recognition and just different types of preservation projects. Again, that was a requirement that I made on this project, that we include this history if we're going to do this project at all for Parkview Hills, and having just some guidance on how we might navigate that or specific context. I mean, obviously I've been working with other city staff on that, but I think just from a commission standpoint, knowing where we want to go in direction-wise for that could be immensely helpful in how we prioritize projects and build the scope up front for it. So that's it. We don't need that right now, but in the future, we're definitely going to do more projects. So just planting the seed. All right, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. And the Parkview Hills one was an intensely led. Bill Kozar, as she mentioned, was very passionate about this project. Collected nearly all of the research for the project with the aid of Nolan Bergstrom and Finn Brent as well. But was very passionate about it, as Jay alluded to. The kind of 4 signs that it seems have been landed upon were indigenous peoples, and most likely the form of some kind of land acknowledgement, looking at early pioneers of the land and first purchasers of the land as white settlers. I think that the thing that fascinated me about the project was that Parkview Hills has almost had the same exact shape since the first land patents were issued, and never changed ever. So what we recognize as Parkview Hills now holds almost the same shape as the first farms that were purchased on that land, which I thought was riveting.
And sorry, I didn't want to let any question Commissioner Powell Wilson asked go unanswered, and I remembered what it was. In terms of funding, we've estimated for the historical pillars on Ransom Street to between $50,000 to $90,000 as a range. For this project for Parkview Hills, we're looking to utilize our quick win funds that each neighborhood gets that has an approved plan each year, so they get roughly $7,500 each year. And we do think that that will cover the construction of and installation of these 4 to 5 signs. So again, looking for nothing from the HBC on this. When it comes to Ransom Street, I don't know what pots of money that you have, but potentially it's a portion if you're looking to help fund it. But that's a rough estimate of the creation and installation of those pillars. Of course, we won't really know until we finalize the design and understand the exact materials being used, but the estimate last time for the initial bid was up to $90,000. Yeah, okay, that's it. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, thank you again, Jay. And the Parkview Hills one, I was very excited to see the initiative coming from the neighborhood association there. I know that earlier in the year, or might have been last year, Parkview Hills was also interested in looking at National Register nomination, but I think that understanding the size and scope of looking at something like that, of doing it for the entire Parkview Hills, is a massive undertaking. So I think that this is a nice venue that they can take to continue to preserve the history of the neighborhood, especially it being so novel and being, I believe, the first PUD plant in the state of Michigan. So it's really very exciting.
Where does their trail run through?
So they have a number of trails at Parkview Hills. This one just, I don't know how familiar you are with Parkview Hills.
Is it west of Woods Lake? Am I thinking of the same subdivision with the Frank Lloyd Wright homes in it?
No, Parkview Hills is on the south side of Parkview Avenue.
Okay.
And it's a completely contained neighborhood. No roads in or out.
That Marlowe's restaurant is.
Yep, down there. And it runs pretty much next to that, the path does. So, or it runs up to that at its completion, so.
Okay, quick thought, I don't know if she just left, but that roughly turns out to be $1,300 to $2,500 per marker if you're doing 36 markers.
Mm-hmm.
That's very low. That's incredibly low. I mean, thinking about, I just looked up quickly the Michigan Historical Marker Program, which of course the form is going to be very different, but the cheapest Michigan Historical Marker for a small one is a wall-mounted marker at $2,100, and it goes to $4,400 for a single Michigan Historical Marker. So again, form factor completely different, but just throwing it out there that maybe.
No, I know.
Okay.
I didn't know what you were saying, but I know that I was just looking at wall-mounted ones the other day, and I was floored to see that they were $4,400. Not surprised, I suppose. I'm guessing that's just the estimate that was given by the consultants or the engineers on this project. To me, and not to keep beating this to death, the one consideration that I really wanted to consider is with the use of bricks, that means that you're going to need to be using mortar, obviously, to anchor those bricks. And I don't know if I would, for one, be an advocate of having a lot of bricks then, because the upkeep would be something that you would want to consider in your mind. So perhaps smaller accent pieces would be the way to go. Also using an experienced mason to understand what kind of mortar should be used to hold the bricks in place so they don't deteriorate prematurely.
I guess that would have been my next question, but I decided not to ask it. But depends also on who's making these, because it could be that somebody's doing charity work and making them so they're not going to charge you as much. And so, I didn't know if she already has a company she's planning on working with, so I didn't do the calculation, but I thought 96,000 was a little low because it's going to take 60,000 to put the lights in the ground. I mean, it's expensive to do that. So, but at least we will have an idea of what we want to pay for our portion.
I mean, or if. Yeah.
Excuse me, if,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
right.
excuse me.
I mean, I do wonder if, I would like next week, if we have time, if we're discussing our work plan goals, this could be a good thing to discuss, and if and how and what capacity we want to be involved in this. I think it's probably something that we do want to be involved with, but yeah, it would be great. I don't know, at the end of the day, that it's likely that they'll probably have some sort of working group, kind of overarching committee to develop content for this, and it would be wonderful if we had a seat at that table. And of course, working group, we would need to be doing the work and doing the research in whatever capacity we need to do, but maybe it's something we can discuss next week at our meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be a wonderful time to discuss it. Not that I know what all the inner workings of how the project will be funded, but it is part of a massive street project, so there might be ways that it's wrapped in that would impact the cost as well, that might be able to bring it down. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a really exciting project. It's a really cool way, in my opinion, to see those pavers reused too, and make sure that they're kept at least. I know that we're all probably kind of nerds for brick streets, but it's cool then to see that they're not just going to vanish and be destroyed or anything.
So to be continued, but exciting stuff happening. But we should probably move on at this point. Or,
Before we move on,
Yes.
sorry. Can we invite Jay back again, so that we could, because if we meet next Wednesday, we should have something a little bit more solidified for her for are we meeting in August? Because usually we skip August. I don't know.
I had planned on meeting in August.
Okay, that's fine. I just asked.
No, yeah. I've advertised next week's meeting as an open meeting, so I guess that we could make decisions, but I think it's really just going to be more of a workshop session. So, but yes, we can certainly invite her back.
Okay, thank you.
and maybe whether we serve on some sort of committee or Jay joins one of our subcommittees, we'll figure out what needs to happen to make sure we're involved. I'm just glad that it was brought to us with advance notice that we can decide how we want to be involved and join as we see fit. All right. Next on the agenda is the financial report, which was included in our packets for our review.
Yep, nothing terribly exciting. The framing of the awards for the Historic Preservation Awards of Merit, the Masonry Workshop payment to Blair Bates of building renovation. I think that's the educational arm of the brand, and then the payment to Kalamazoo Nonprofit Advocacy Coalition for allowing them to use our space for the Historic Preservation Awards of Merit. Again, they didn't charge us really for like renting the space. It was more for having people on hand and custodial services, which I'm always very appreciative that they have been so willing to continue to work with us. Last year, they didn't charge us at all, and then this year at a greatly reduced price, so that's been really a blessing.
And should we get that address fixed?
Yes, free of charge.
Is the D&C column debits and credits? I mean, I'm not very financially literate for reading these reports, but
That would be my assumption, yes. Why it only shows up then once on that column, I would not understand because it's not the only debit, but I'm guessing you could just look at the encumbrances to see where the money's coming out.
any questions or comments on the report? And is this something also we'll be discussing next week then, establishing our budget for next year?
Yeah, we can certainly do that at the meeting as well.
All right, well, then let's move on to the Section 106 report, which is the next thing in the packet.
Yep. So I just gave you guys the quarters 1 and 2 because this is what I'm going to be sending off to, or this is the list that SHPO requests as well for the 106 reviews. Section 106 reviews that I conduct, once again, are reviews of when federal funds are used on properties that are nationally eligible for the National Register of Historic Places or on the National Register of Historic Places. The programmatic agreement that we have focuses specifically on things like HUD and CDBG funds, so Housing and Urban Development, and Community Development Block Grants. There's a couple other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head, but those are the reviews that I do. The federal funding usually comes in the form of the projects that are usually executed are things like lead remediation or minor maintenance projects that are done on properties. Most of the time, those properties are not National Register eligible, or they are not on the National Register of Historic Places, hence the 60 addresses that are in the table below on pages 11 and 12 of the packet. But there are a couple that were National Register eligible or on the National Register. So the projects that were on the National Register, all of the projects largely conformed with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, or they were covered underneath Appendix C of the programmatic agreement, which largely covers things like maintenance and things that will not have any detrimental effect or adverse effect on the historic property.
I did see noted the Hayes Park, South Park proposed historic district, proposed by whom? Isn't that our purview? Is it, or was it by the Kramer Group work, or?
Yeah, so anything in all of Edison, since that was just done recently.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, that's the, and which one are you looking at specifically?
It's noted.
Okay, number 3.
Under the Stockbridge one.
Yep. So that's just from their most recent survey that they completed in 2021.
So does it have different boundaries than our established Edison neighborhood?
So that's a subsect within Edison, much, much smaller. They divided it into 5 different portions.
Oh, so
That one-
Edison's huge, but
Yeah, and which I think is the right thing to do. So that extends from like the boulevards, like Lay, Lane, and Eggleston. This is the largest one in there, but it is different than, yes, the Edison neighborhood.
Any other questions or comments on this matter? Nope. Discussion and action items, what do we have under that?
Nothing.
It's just part of the agenda?
It's just on the way that it's created now, yeah, is one of the sections. I should have taken it off, my apologies.
That's fine. Coordinator's report should be the final page then in the packet, and whatever else Luis wants to tell us.
Yep. So, touch again on the orientation and training that'll be next week on the 19th of July from 6 to 9 p.m. If you guys still wanted to give me some stuff, like by tomorrow, I would still take it from you all. Some of the things that I kind of gleaned from it was looking at how the Historic Preservation Commission fits into the big picture of preservation within the city of Kalamazoo, Robert's Rules for Order, historic designation on the local and national level, understanding better what Section 106 review is, and compare comparable preservation efforts from other communities within the city of Kalamazoo are just some of the things. And again, if you want to add some more, I'll be putting together all those materials before next week, obviously, for the orientation. We'll also be looking at the work plan and the budget.
That sounds great. Allison's very ambitious for our 3 hours that we have
Seems
together
like a lot to do.
on Wednesday night. Yeah, especially with the work plan, because I think that oftentimes we've had, 3 hours just on the work plan, right? So I wonder if, do we want to try to dedicate the first hour and a half to training, and then the second hour and a half? Do we want to try to split up that way? Because my worry is either we just know that we're going to have to schedule another one of these for work plan discussions. I don't want to get to the point where it's like 9:05 p.m. and we haven't discussed the work plan yet.
What do you all think?
What do you think the top priority is, training or getting the work plan done or doing some of these discussions on projects? They all seem important, but Fitting it in 3 hours, I agree, is going to be challenging.
I think I had a class in grad school that went over all this stuff. It took whole semesters.
Same.
Yeah.
But not to answer a question with another one, but it's truly, you know, you guys are driving the ship here. And these are some of the things that I heard that people expressed should be in, so I didn't want to give preference to anything. I do understand that 3 hours could be a little bit of a cram session, though, to be able to do all those things at once. If there are things that you guys think are really high on your list, you know, let me know. Or if we want to try to partition that session into 2 separate ones and make sure that we can give ourselves ample time, you know, effective time to be able to discuss all those things, I am a huge advocate for that. I think that since we already have a groundwork laid for the work plan, that does give us a slight advantage in that arena at least, because we already have something to work with, a foundation, correct, to work off of. But again, you guys are driving the ship, and whatever you think would be the most beneficial, I really want to honor that and make sure that we cover those topics. But I completely hear you that 3 hours can come and go almost in the blink of an eye.
I think, and I'm by no means belittling the training, because I'm sure I'm the first in line to be trained. However, I think that, you know, having the work plans completed so that we know what we're doing for the year kind of may take precedent. So can we dedicate, like Catherine said, maybe an hour of some of these topics, and also including the Ransom Street thing, so we can vote on that. And then spend the majority time on the work plans.
So I would say that we should probably kick the ransom stuff. We just heard about it today, and we've established this before that. So I would kind of put that in our back seat a little bit, because I don't think there's any huge.
Okay.
I think that we're still going to have time, and I don't want us to kind of undermine the work that we had laid out that we wanted to do the work plan or the training session before, would be my first thing. The second thing would be that we do have to have training sessions. So that's something that like I get from on high saying like, have you done training sessions for your commission? So this is, I don't know in which way, but a requirement. And I think it's a very effective requirement to have the training session so that we can all be on the same page and have some questions answered regarding some of the topics that you brought up that I think were things that will lead to you all as commissioners being more empowered in your positions and being able to understand what the duties are of the commission a little bit better. So I, for one, am a big advocate of the training portion of all of this, but just my opinion.
Well, I'm not negating the training. I agree. There are topics that take precedence and we do need to be trained on. What I'm asking, can we dedicate the majority of our time on the planning? Because the planning, if we don't know what we're doing for the year, or we don't have any goals for the year, it kind of, you know, our whole purpose becomes by the wayside. So I'm by no means am I saying negate training. But can we, you know, condense some of these things that's in here to about an hour or so, and then the rest of the time for the for the planning?
I won't answer until we hear from the rest of the commissioners regarding that.
Sorry.
I think we heard from Pam previously that these were usually separate sessions, training and work plan meetings, but we'll probably just learn as we go in this experiment of combining them, how it goes.
I think it should be 70-30, work plan, training 30%, but that's from years of going through training sessions as a teacher for having time to work and plan what you did. It's important to get the training and to have that, but sometimes I would not like to see the whole session taken up with training.
Ryan, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I guess I would ask, if we were to take just these topics right here, as the presenter of said training, what would you allot yourself in a time? If we were to just focus on these topics right here, does an hour sound fair?
As Catherine said, I think it could fill a semester or a year. To be frank with you, I think that preservation is such a niche thing that is completely separate from history. And I think that understanding that nuance of what preservation is, aside from history, can take a long time. Setting the groundwork is really important, I guess, in my opinion, to understanding where you're going to go next. I know that previously a lot of Sharon's training sessions seems led with a history of preservation in the city of Kalamazoo, to understand how it all came about, and that would be something that I would touch on lightly, but I want to make sure that we look at some of the practicality of what we're doing and understanding the space that we operate in and how we can be the most effective in that space.
Well, and, perhaps we just need to dedicate next week to training, and that's what we're doing next week, and then we need to schedule another meeting for work planning. I don't know. I mean, I was wondering if does that sound?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there would be nothing barring a couple folks too from making a work plan subcommittee if that needed to be as well, if not everyone needed to convene for it.
But we're all involved in the work plan, so I'm not sure how, I could assign Kyle everything I want to if he wasn't there.
No, yeah, I know. It could be something that was brought as a recommendation to a regular meeting then. I suppose that how much time do we need to sit down and do the planning is something that y'all have to ask yourselves, I guess. I think that we probably took, how long did we take last year? Did we set aside 2 hours?
I don't recall.
I don't either. I know that it was more than one, for sure. Just a thought. I don't want to take away time in summer from folks either, so.
Sure, okay, well, maybe we just go into next week and see how it goes, and if we don't feel like we get enough time for the work plan, then we schedule something else. I don't know, we get to see how it goes. I just want to make sure that we pay mind to the work plan, because I want to do some things.
Certainly. All good discussion. No, I think it's great. This is why we're here, is to be able to talk about these things. So did not mean it facetiously. Pam spoke earlier to the current vacancy. I will just go ahead and interview the applicant that we have, because I haven't got any more bites on that. So keep you all updated on that as well. The first gravestone cleaning has been scheduled for the 22nd of July from 9 a.m. to noon.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
We don't interview the person?
Yeah, it's always been the whole commission. Or is there a separate?
So usually
Just
I was
the-
just having a meeting, I guess, before with them, and then I can bring them in here. I apologize if I misspoke, but yeah.
As long as there's both, I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just want to be able to meet them and speak with them as well.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Just asked a question, because in the past, we spoke to them and then we did the vote and yada, yada, yada. I would hate to show up and somebody's sitting.
Oh, and I don't think that I have the power to do that, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Most other committees that I work with of my colleagues, they do not bring the person in. There's a subcommittee that is made for selecting applicants, and then the subcommittee makes a recommendation to the board in an effort to streamline the process, just so you are all aware. Might be something to consider in the future as well.
As we establish our work plan and what our subcommittees are.
And obviously that would be a rather dormant one for most times, I think.
Right.
And it would probably be something that's appointed as a vacancy comes up. Yes. Anyhow, back to the gravestone cleaning, the 22nd of July from 9 a.m. to noon. You're all more than welcome, but you need not attend if you don't want to.
Can you just make sure you loop me in on everything from the intern that I didn't know was coming in the first place, but I'm very happy about?
Yep.
I had a friend actually ask me when this is happening, so I don't know when our public announcements are happening and those sorts of things, but I believe I'm probably the only one that still has the Grave Squad email access.
A couple people have reached out to that email and they haven't, I
Oh, you
don't,
do too?
I don't.
Oh.
So I've never had the access to that
Okay.
one. So I've
Yeah.
just been directing people to me because I don't know anything about that email address. Finn did send out, the intern, sent out this notification to all the neighborhood associations. We'll have another push of things going out this month as well, or this week as well. I will keep you in the loop.
And I have a friend who actually travels around the state to do these events with various other organizations, and she said she can donate several buckets and some D2 and Orvis for us.
Awesome.
Which is exciting.
Yeah,
Even
that is.
if we don't use it that much. But
Yeah.
I told her we push more for water unless they have previous experience in training. But
Yeah.
In the email you sent initially about this, you mentioned like there'd be a flyer you'd be sharing.
Yes.
If you have that, could you send it out?
Yep, I will.
Okay, thank you.
And that just brings us to the reviews. Nothing really of note with these 17 administrative reviews that I've conducted on historic properties without a permit required. 20 administrative reviews that I've conducted that needed a building permit. We've had 21 hearings this year, which we've had a lot of HDC hearings this year. Again, you all are more than welcome to come on down to an HDC meeting if you would so choose to. They're always fun, and it's cool to see how the administrative arm of historic preservation works here in the city of Kalamazoo. Those are the third Tuesdays of the month, usually unless there's some rescheduling at 5 p.m. And that brings us to a grand total of 48 hearings, if I could do my math correctly, and a grand total of $2,485 from fees associated with that. If anyone has any questions about that.
all right. Oh, I was going to say, usually we have a commissioner comments portion. Yeah.
Backing up a second, where is the training schedule? Where are we going to do the training work?
Where?
Here?
Here. Yep.
Is it this room or the?
I couldn't get that room,
Oh.
so I had to get this room. I wish it could have been that room, but
Oh, here's the thing. We'll be really focused on the training. Are we eating? I'm
No,
sorry,
I
I have to eat. I'm sorry. I need to know, do I need to bring my dinner or what?
either I would leave that all up to your own discretions, I suppose. To either eat before, or I don't know if you're allowed to eat at the dais. I personally will not eat at the dais.
Yeah, that's not cool. You got drippings on the tape.
But I have not organized for food to be arranged for the training, no.
Okay, thank you.
So there's another event happening there?
Some other board it looked like was going to be in there. I can double check, and if I need to make an audible, I can. But I would have scheduled it in there if I could have, and for some reason I scheduled it in here. So that leads me to believe that there must have been something going on in here. And I scheduled it during our last month's meeting.
If you don't mind double checking this week, just to make sure. 'Cause
Yeah,
there.
I agree 100%.
Okay, great,
Yep.
thank you.
No,
Don't put that on the thing.
Food is vital for training in all aspects, people, animals.
Well, let's hope it's a good split of training and planning, because your brain can get burned out doing too much of one thing at the same time, right?
wholeheartedly agree.
All right, any other comments from the commissioners for this evening?
Just one more, if we could, I don't have my last month's agenda with me, but I guess I wasn't here last month anyway. But if we could get the work plans like attached to the agenda, I don't know if that's, you might have been doing that all along. I know you were for a while, so I wasn't sure if this is the first one. It was just kind of an accident, but if it was something that was intentional, can we bring it back, please?
Yep,
Okay.
I can put it back on. Yep.
That'd be great.
All right, if there's nothing further at this time, we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.